Okay. I should start. My name is Amal Al Khajah. I am from Sharjah and Dubai. I moved in between. And so I grew up in Sharjah as a child, but then I moved to Dubai at some point, and I went back to Sharjah to work. My first contact with art was through my mother, who is an artist. So as a child, I grew up watching her create art, mostly painting. I went with her to the courses when she was teaching. I was around artists in Sharjah, in the art community in Sharjah. So that was my first contact with art. And then gradually I ended up having a lot of interest in it. And I decided to study art, visual art in Zayed University in Dubai. We did not focus on one principle, so it was a combination of painting, sculpture, photography, drawing, ceramics, sculpture. Of course, then you have to, with your final project or your graduation year, you pick something to work with. And I worked on with painting, but right now my practice is mostly installation. I kind of knew, so there wasn't like a moment where I was like, oh, that's it. I always knew since, for example, in high school, I kind of knew that, yes, I will graduate and study art. I will participate. And I was already like creating by that time. My mom used to work not in a separate studio. She would work anywhere at the house. So I was very also exposed to that. She would work in the living room. So she would be painting, put her canvas up, and we were watching TV and she's painting there. So that's something I always remember. And so, yeah. At the beginning, I worked with ink and with painting. And I think because my mom is a painter, that kind of came like naturally. I was also told so many times that I have the same like visuals or the same color palette like her, and I guess that's natural, like being exposed to that the entire time. But then the more after university, and also after doing a program in the UAE, we were pushed to experiment a lot, and I experienced a lot more materials during university and in the programs later on. I experimented with a lot of material, and bringing my work into 3D was interesting for me. It also helped abstracting. With paintings, I worked more with narrative. So, but now, so I'm attracted a lot to working with tape and ink, with transparency. So for me, when I find my topics or inspiration in so many things, a lot of it from people. So there's this thing of watching people, watching their behavior. Also, I'm attracted, I like going out, I like nature, and I'm attracted to stones. So wherever I go in any country, I collect them. And even within the UAE, so I go to, let's say, a city called Ras Al Khaimah, to the mountains, and I pick a couple of stones that are of different colors, different shapes, and I collect them in jars. And then from that, I trace these stones and create compositions, abstract compositions, so that I'm very interested in people's stories. There's this thing where a person passes by, and let's say this person is with a child, and the child is walking the dog. I always like picture in the back of my head, how did that composition come? I don't know. It's curiosity, I guess. There's something about repetition. There's a therapeutic aspect to it. So I like to pattern when I work, and there's this thing about repeating the same line or repeating the same like square that I enjoy doing. With installation, it's the same. Most of my installations have the element of repetition. It's like 300 pieces of the same motion or steps, and it keeps on repeating itself and it creates a big installation. Or it's like cutting a certain thread a certain length and then creating an installation out of that, but there is always repeating the same action over and over and over again. So the motifs, again, I used the stones. So two of the motifs, I used the stones I collected from cities in the UAE. So it's an overlap of a stone from Khorfakan, it's a city in Sharjah, and then stones also from Ras Al Khaimah and from Dubai. And so I play around with these stones, put them on the paper, trace them, put another one, trace again, create these shapes, and then start patterning there. So again, with the repetition of the motion, then I interpreted some ink and watercolor, and then there's this the motion of just printing over and over again. I think kind of works for me very well. Yeah. So working with Mr. Ball was really it was a pleasure working with him, because we kind of created our own sign language to communicate. He doesn't speak any of the languages I speak, and I don't speak German, so it was interesting. We have a dynamic. It's a short time that I spent here, but we already have a routine, and we get faster, at producing the work. So yeah, it was really a pleasure working with him. It's when you work and kind of your brain goes not off, just you zone out. That kind of work that draws me in, and it happens here. You're just repeating the same motion, putting the paper, aligning it, removing it, putting it on a rack, making sure every single paper kind of aligns, and then repeating the same again and again. There's this thing where my father always reads to us, the stories of the Prophet, the stories of in the Quran, the Holy Book. So the Holy Book has a lot of stories and a lot of narratives. Because I'm drawn to narratives. Sometimes some work comes from there. It's very abstract, but there's, for example, a work that I created that's responding to one story of a Prophet Yusuf, or one description of God, and that kind of translated into an installation. So, something has to play in the background. A lot of time I play shows and plays, so like theater plays. So there are those two classical Egyptian plays, and they're like comedy, and I just play them on my laptop on a side, so I'm not really looking, I'm just listening to the dialogue, and you will find me drawing or painting and creating something and laughing at the same time, because it's just not just music. Sometimes you need something other than music playing. You need dialogue or people, and I just watch things that I've watched over and over and over again, to the point where I can recite the entire play by heart. So that's my routine. A lot of coffee, and that's it, I guess. A quiet place. I think I need my space, and that's it. So it's my first time in Germany, so I'm first time in Düsseldorf. It's a very quiet city, I noticed. The people are so friendly, they're very genuine. I mean, as I said before, I work, or I like to watch people learn. So when traveling, there's always something new you learn about people in different countries. And I'm always curious to people's style of living. And I think it's kind of important for artists to travel. It's to at least go and see what other artists are doing all over the world. Topics or even ways to communicate ideas. I mean, you go to museums here. Some artworks might not speak to me, but then I'm sure like it makes sense for the people living here or living in the region. And it's good to kind of expose yourself to different types of art. So yeah, I enjoyed being in Düsseldorf. I think I learned a lot in my short period. So the Daman Art Exchange program, I mean, it was a good opportunity for me to explore Düsseldorf, to create 4 new motifs. It kind of gave me a push to go back to painting and to watercolors and ink, which I haven't been working with a lot lately since I turned to 3D or like installation work. So going back to that was good with the printmaking, and I got to meet new people. I got to learn about the culture here. So I think, and it's also exciting to know that some of these works will be sent to people, and I'm always curious who receives the works, if they're getting excited about it, where does an artwork go. It's I think it's an interesting program. I sing all the time, and when I said like when I work, I listen to something, so I recite with it. So you'll find me singing, you'll find me reciting a movie or like a play, and so yeah, that's something maybe you should know. You will always hear noises from the studio space I'm working in.